Hi, I'm Kristen, and today I'll be talking about how 3 months of daily meditation can have radical results on your reality and specifically on manifestation. So, even though I typically talk about aliens, non human intelligence, orbs, and contact on this channel, I do occasionally also talk about manifestation because it is a really big part of my life. I am a deep believer in the law of assumption and law of attraction. I've actually seen the results of visualizing and putting like static into sleep, like the technique by Neville Goddard, like to use, and seeing how my life has changed for the better because of it. So several years ago, I won a small state lottery by visualizing. And since then, I've had like lots of just like other smaller, weirder type of manifestations come into my life. And I can even see, like, just based on how my thought process works, how I can also be manifesting negative things into my life that I don't want. So anytime that I kind of see an interview where people are talking about manifestation techniques and what was going on, what happened that led to them manifesting something that was kind of like major, my ears are always perking up because I'm thinking, like, how can I incorporate this into my daily practice and incorporate this into kind of just like my mindset and how I'm thinking about things throughout the day. And so I was just watching the Area 52 podcast with Chris Ramsay, and he was interviewing the neuroscientist Julia Mossbridge. And because she is a scientist that primarily focuses on like kind of like what is going on within the brain and possibly within the soul, that allows people to have premonitions and that allows synchronicities to occur and like why we pick up synchronicities. They ended up talking about the out of body experience. And so I'm going to put in two clips here, and it's Chris specifically talking about how when he had gotten to a certain point with his kind of meditation practice, he was able to deliberately have OBEs and how it kind of like led to instant manifestation. And then a little bit later, he talked about how he was talking to several people at a conference, and they were all mentioning that around the 3 month mark of having a daily meditation practice, that was when like things really started kicking into high gear, and OBEs were happening and manifestation was happening.
And I remember willing myself up and this time turning around and seeing myself laying there and the fear like
Came back.
Oh, I was scared the second I was in that state. It's like I always say it's like you're walking a tightrope of fear. Like instant manifestation will happen. It feels like what I felt like anyways. Like if I think about something terrible, like that will come upon me.
Right.
Or good. So I just didn't want to think of anything. I'm like, just keep it one foot in front of the other type deal. And that happened. I think it was kind of a perfect storm when it happened. But then when I tried it, it took like 3 months. And multiple people I've talked to at a convention, the same convention I met you at, I was with like 3 other people, and we were having this discussion, and I told my story, and all 3 of the other people said for them, it also happened at about 3.5 months into meditating every day.
Yeah.
So that seemed to be like the common denominator between us 4, where it's like, oh, okay, it takes, I guess, that much time to achieve like this kundalini or this like experience.
Yeah.
So it was really enlightening.
Yeah.
And for me, I don't seek it anymore, not because I'm afraid of it. But there was this sentiment of, okay, this seems to be like what happens to you when you die. This seems to be the phenomenon that people describe when they,
which is why I think it might be a little dangerous.
Perhaps. But I also felt like, okay, if this is what happens to you when you die, and this might not be the afterlife, it might just be transitional, might be something else. What's the hurry?
It's interesting how Chris mentioned that at that 3 month mark, that was when there was like a really big change in kind of like people's kundalini energy. And so if you're not familiar with kundalini energy, it's kind of seen as like chi and like Chinese belief systems. It's kind of like the life force energy that like runs through the center of your body and like radiates out. And so typically when you have these different chakra centers, there's certain parts that are blocked or not as open. And when there's like a kundalini rising or kundalini awakening, as you sometimes have with extended periods of meditation, like your soul energy kind of like rises up through you from like the sacral bottom of kind of like your body, and it rises up and it unlocks and unlocks and unlocks. And as it moves further up through your body, like there might be certain areas that it moves right through because there's nothing really wrong with it. It's already kind of stable and balanced. But especially as it gets up towards like the higher levels of your body, like kind of the crown of your head, your heart, just like kind of like your third eye, specifically unlocking those chakras with kundalini energy, it can lead to like these humongous changes in manifestation capabilities and being able to kind of like unlock your soul from the body and leave. And so Well, it is interesting to kind of talk about OBEs. I'm not going to really dig into that here today, just because I am just kind of more interested personally in manifestation. But it's worth mentioning that kind of when you have completely clear and unblock chakras, especially again, the heart, the throat, third eye, and the crown chakra, when these are all kind of like aligned, balanced, and open, there is a huge amount of like kind of intuitive energy that you are now kind of able to tap into. And as you're tapping into that intuitive energy, you're able to tap into kind of like molding and manipulating your life, I suppose is the best way to think of it. So it might come in like at a small kind of start through kind of intuitive knowing, like claircognizance. And you might just know, like, if I do this, this will happen. You can get yourself out of harm's way, or you might be walking into a really wonderful situation, or you might just kind of hear even like a short phrase, or see something in your mind clairvoyantly where you are shown a certain place or a certain person, or just something in particular where you know that if you go towards that, or you just kind of figure out a way to get closer to whatever was shown to you or bring that about, then you're going to have like wonderful things happen in your life. And so that's typically kind of like how it starts out when you are kind of unlocking these higher levels of your soul and your body. Um, but as you heard from this like kind of daily meditation practice of like you do it every day for 3 months, you start tapping into something that is like way more wild than intuition. So that would be like the early starting steps. Like maybe a few weeks or a month into meditation, you would have those just strong intuitive knowings, and messages, and possibly even like messages again from spirit, from your higher self, from non-human intelligence. But at that 3 month mark, you're like now kind of looking straight into the lens of like what your reality is, and you can see how it can be molded. And so even though I have brought certain things in my life through manifestation via visualization, so I will sit in my mind and I will believe that, and see and feel that I'm like touching a certain thing, and I'm sitting in a certain environment, and I'm feeling certain feelings over like the situation that I'm creating in my mind. um, that visualization is quite difficult to like completely get yourself into. So if you're going to manifest with visualization, like you kind of have to sit for at least a few seconds in this full new visualized and felt reality for it to kind of come to fruition and feel it real. But what is interesting about this 3 month meditation method, it's that you don't have to do any of that. It kind of takes the guesswork out of what details do I have to put into a scene? What do I need to think of beforehand before I kind of like go into like this sleepy state thinking of something? Like what should I be saying to somebody or hearing back to myself in the scene? Like this eradicates the scene entirely. So with just meditation, and tying into manifestation, it's like you hit a kind of like a clear wall. And I would say that beyond that kind of like wall, it's just like it's very hard to describe if you haven't felt it. But your mind, it becomes like kind of like very balanced and flat, but and open, and so it's able to receive like a lot of different information, that you wouldn't have been able to receive if you had not been meditating for so long. And so at that point, you start kind of like moving into different states of being in different timelines. And this is something that I've spoken about in another video in regards to kind of like a contact dream that I had. And I was told, like, they weren't specifically saying like don't focus on visualization, but they were kind of like showing and telling me that I can see a timeline and see a way that I could be living or looking or acting or behaving, just anything that I would want to be bringing about in my life. I could just kind of see it on a screen, and like in my mind during meditation, and then I could just move into it and be that person. And so this was like really hammered home to me. Like it was just like very, very much like pushed upon me that like if I can just feel myself being the person, like I am the person, and that is just how my life will go. And so this is something that some manifestation teachers talk about, and it's kind of like the merging of yourself into the new person, into the new identity. But it's not something that is spoken about like too much. And I believe that this is kind of like the method that you're going to get into with instant manifestation if you do this kind of like 3 month meditation process, because I can kind of like vouch for this even. When you spend that amount of time and then you go into like this mental state where everything is clear, it's almost like as soon as something pops into your mind that is your desire, your fantasy, like what have you, whatever it is that you want to have, when it pops in and it's crystal clear, you don't have to put like any real kind of effort into it, and you could say like, oh, that's me. or that's mine, or that's my experience. And then you just kind of hold on to it. You don't have to do anything else. You just kind of say like that is my new reality, and essentially it comes true pretty damn quick. So in terms of even when I won the lottery, I had been spending months and months like kind of trying to implement Neville Goddard's visualization strategy, and I was finding it like harder as the days were going by to properly implement this into like my mind. I was struggling to kind of like hold on to the picture of it. And something that Neville spoke about was that like pretty much like when you have a like kind of fully formed fantasy, a fully formed scene, and you felt it real, like at a certain point, like it is done, is kind of like how he said, it is done. And you feel it at that point that like you can't hold on to it anymore because and he likened this to like kind of like a sexual activity, but like when you have gone and when you have like felt completed, at that point, like you don't have the desire to think of it anymore or to visualize it or to fantasize about it, just because it is now a part of your past reality. And so I felt that sensation. That is again something that you would feel with like this months of meditation practice, is that you certainly get to a point where everything has become stable and flat, and you're no longer wishing for something or fantasizing about something, because you now have the thing, especially like in your heart. So if you look in your 3D reality, you might not be able to say like, oh well, I have this amount of money, this car, this thing, this whatever it is that you're manifesting. But it feels like a done thing. It feels like a past memory from kind of like what you saw during your like sleepy time manifestation period, the time that you would have within the meditation. And so at that point, for me, it was about 3 months that I kind of like gave up on visualizing, and I just knew like, no, I'm going to have a lottery win. I know that I'm going to have like this amount of money, and I'm not worrying about it. Like I already saw it in my mind that it has happened. It's a part of my reality in this timeline, and it's going to happen. And then wouldn't you know, like 3 months later, that there it was, and I had won. And so this would really apply to almost anything. So it could apply to, as I mentioned, like things, money, health. It would apply to love. It would apply to any better relationships with friends or finding a community. Like pretty much like the sky is the limit as far as like what you could think of. Like if you wanted this thing or this opportunity, then it will come to you if you can tap into that feeling of just kind of like flat calm, within the meditation state, and you let it come to you. And so I think it's worth also mentioning that while this does become quite easy, I would say, like after like the months of daily practice, um, there is also a concern a bit for certain people that this could kind of spiral into spiritual psychosis. And so certain people, when they've been meditating at a long pace, again, like months, every single day is pretty long. If they don't have a background of stabilizing themselves, grounding themselves, and kind of like holding their energy close within themselves, and balancing it out and kind of like feeling it like balance radiating through the body, it can lead to spiritual psychosis, where the kundalini energy that is kind of like bubbling up from the base and rising, it kind of bursts out and explodes out, and you end up having a situation where you might have just like way too much contact from spirits and non-human intelligence, and you're just like always hearing them. And specifically as this relates to manifestation, and I apologize that I was not able to find the video that I had watched, the interview I had watched, regarding this before filming. But I had seen somebody that said he was practicing like meditation and like the idea of manifestation for a very short amount of time when he was either an older teenager, like 18 or 19, or he was like in his early 20s. He was a young man when this happened, and he said that there was just one particular night that he had laid down, and he felt like this surge of energy that came through him, and it like just rose up and like burned through. And he said there was a period of about 2 or 3 weeks where he was having instant manifestation. That means that like anything that this young man would think of, it would just instantly happen. And so I think he said that he knew that there was a major problem when he was out on the street and he was feeling like, oh my God, I can hear all of this. I have all these crazy sensations. And then he saw an old man on the other side of the road, and he thought like, oh God, I hope nothing bad happens to that old man. Like, that would be awful. And then he said that like pretty much instantly, like there was like a car wreck or the man like had a heart attack or something, but like there was something that he saw that happened to the stranger on the other side of the road near instantly after he had the thought about it. And so there's a question of, was his intuition just like that highly tapped in that he knew that something was going to happen and so he had the thought, or did he actually manifest that into happening? But from what he was saying in the interview, he said that there were like many things that he would think about whether he wanted it or not, and it would instantly manifest. So he thought that he had manifested like that like horrible scenario happening. And so that is a risk that can be kind of run into a bit, that when you are fully 100% completely tapped into like this kundalini energy and like moving into your new reality and manifesting whatever it is that you want, that if you do have certain specific thoughts, like they will happen like rapidly, if not like at that exact moment, like probably within like 48 to 72 hours. And so it can get to the point where you have to like kind of like super monitor your thoughts or distract yourself, because if you have a bad thought, that bad thought might occur. And if you have wonderful, amazing thoughts, like those crazy things that you think about during that period that you're super tapped in, can also occur. So obviously that part is wonderful, but monkey's paw situation, be careful what you wish for. And even if it's something that you think that you really want, like make sure that you really want it, because it can have like kind of unintended consequences. Yeah, so I thought it was interesting to kind of have heard about like kind of like this meditation practice on Area 52, and I just kind of wanted to share kind of like what I have learned about meditation manifestation and kind of like how it works and how the mind works to kind of tap into this. Yeah, so if you have any questions for me about how to kind of think or change your thought process or kind of lock your thoughts down in order to merge into that identity of the new person on the new timeline, please feel free to ask in the comment section and I will try to get back to you. Yeah, so thank you so much for listening today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.